The section 4 of the poem was more about Prufrock's regret. It seems as if he is accepting that he has spent his time uselessly and now he is no more in a position to bring a change in his own self, to bring a change in his life, and maybe he is never going to, like it seems as if he has accepted that it is too late to change in life. However, in section 5, we come to know that Prufrock continues to grapple with his fear of rejection. He knows that if he does not conform to the society, he is going through a lot of societal, disregard, and he would be a victim of societal rejection. And another thing he fears is contra- as contrast to his fear of rejection. He is more fearful of the fact that he is currently unable to act, unable to bring a change in his life. So he imagines the judgmental eyes of others, the women, the other people who are watching him, who are envisioning him fixing you in a formulated phrase and sprawling on a pen. It seems as if they have labeled him as being guilty of inaction. This highlights his fear of being scrutinized and mocked by the society. Despite be, having the desire to change, we find that he has a contrasting or an opposite desire to be a part of the society. Prufrock yearns for acceptance but is paralyzed by his own insecurities and doubts. Nobody has told him that he is guilty of inaction. However, it is his own self analysis that has brought him to the conclusion that he is insecure and he is doubtful. Here in this section, the most important uh, figure of speech is that of imagery that has been used in the section from line 71 to 92. Now let's move on to the text of this section. Here, the poet continues the imagery that he started in the previous section, and it is basically the start of this section tells you about the theme of alienation. Despite living in a world which is full of people, despite living in a world which is uh, you know which is surrounded by machines which can help in overcoming the alienation, the feeling of alienation one has, we find that the theme of loneliness is one of the most important themes of this poem. And it is not only Prufrock who is going through this situation, through this alienation, but it is also, it seems as if the poet himself, and if we take Prufrock as a representative of modern man, we find that despite having a lot of people around, despite having a lot of gathering around, despite having a lot of gadgets around, we find that people are tragically going through loneliness, and that loneliness doesn't come to an end throughout their lives. He says that continuing his theme of loneliness, he says, and watched the smoke that rises from the pipes of lonely men. Now, here he is talking about those men who have not yet married or who are still waiting for their lady loves, a lady's love. leaning out of windows, as if they are looking outside the windows in search of of company, and that company which is going to remain true to them forever. Because relations in the modern times do not sustain; they do not continue. Then he says, uh, I should have. Now, this term is very important. Should have. Maybe he's regretting being a human being, and especially a human being who is surviving at a time of chaos. So he says, instead of being a human being, instead of being a modern man, I should have been a pair of ragged claws, that is, rough claws. And here he is showing his desire to be a crab scuttling across the floors of silent seas. Now, the silent seas are basically seas are huge reservoirs of water, and water is a positive symbol. So the silent seas are symbolic of basically the proper analysis of oneself. When you are silent, uh, or even if you want to know about yourself, the best uh, time for doing so is when you are alone with your own self, without any interference by the other people, or by the interference of the society around. So he says that instead of being this shows his uh, hope, or his desire to be a crab instead of leading his life like a helpless human being. And it uh, and he prefers the life of a crab to the life of human being, because human beings, because they are compelled to live in the world, they cannot have time for self gratification. They do not have time for self analysis. They do not have time for understanding their own selves. So, whereas the crabs have the ability to do so, they have the time to do so. He says, and the afternoon, the evening sleeps so peacefully and smoothed by long fingers, asleep, tired, or it malingers, stretched on the floor here beside you and me. He says that the afternoon, and or which transformed into the evening, is sleeping so peacefully. It seems as if that it has been lulled to sleep. How do we know that it has been lulled to sleep? By the use of the term smoothed by long fingers, asleep, tired, or it malingers. Malingers is to pretend, or to fake sickness, stretched on the floor, or maybe the evening is too tired to continue and it is stretched on the floor, it is sleeping here beside you and me, where we are sleeping, where we are spending the time. He is addressing his beloved again. So he says that we are not sleeping alone. Maybe it is the evening that is also sleeping with us, resting on the floor. Okay, so then he says, should I, after tea and cakes and ices, have the strength to force the moment to its crisis? Do or will I have the or will I pluck the courage after having my afternoon snacks or the evening snacks, to accept the truth? And what that truth is, that the whole situation is so, or why I can't come out of my traumatic conditions is through my chaos, is the reason of that is myself. Maybe I am going to accept the truth after having my afternoon tea and cakes. So he says that maybe these cakes and tea are going to provide me with the strength to uh, accept the truth. But though I have wept and fasted, wept and prayed, this shows that he has been regretting. There's a repetition of the verb wept, wept. So he has been going through uh, 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 one of the most traumatic phases of his life, where he wants to correct himself, he wants to rectify himself, and for that he has wept. He has maybe prayed god that prayed to god that he may be redeemed of his uh, of this uh, trauma. And he has not only been weeping, he has had fasted as well, he has been praying as well. However, this shows the that this line is very important, as it shows our spiritual corruption. See, if a person is truly uh, guilt, he is sorry for what he has done in the past, he should be satisfied after surrendering to god. He should have uh, you know uh, he should have, after offering his prayers, be satisfied. But even the uh, our prayers are without any essence. Even a person, even modern man, when he prays, he does so mechanically, without any true feeling. Then he says, though I have seen my head grown slightly bald, brought in upon a platter. He says, I have seen my head separated from my body, and this head has not been, it has not been discarded. Rather, it has been you know it has been put on a platter, as if it is a trophy. So, despite making his prayers, despite weeping over his wrongdoings, despite fasting, he imagines himself being beheaded and going through a trauma. So, this again shows that his prayers are without any real spirit, without any real essence. Then he says, I am no prophet, and here's no great matter. I have seen the moment of my greatness flicker. He says that prophets have had a very tough time during their lifetimes, because they had to go through a lot of persecution. However, that was a different matter, because they were closer to gods. They had to God. They had the strength to fight the evil of that time. They had miraculous help as well. However, he says that I am not a prophet, and I cannot claim that I have been fighting for truth. And if that my challenge had not been for truth, then I should not be going through all the traumas that I am going through right now. So he says that even I have seen that people people like me desiring redemption. However, we do not get it redeemed, because ultimately it is our inner corruption which is stopping us from being saved from the traumas of life. He says that I have seen the moment of my greatness flicker. That is, I have had a chance to prove my worth, and that chance has been wasted, because at the time I was when I could do anything, when I could do everything to prove my worth. He says, I have lost that moment, and that that moment has proved to be futile, because I haven't achieved anything. Then he says, and I have seen the eternal footman. Eternal footman is the angel of death. Hold my coat, as if that, the angel of death is mocking him. He is preparing him to, take him towards his redemption and snicker. But he is laughing cleverly as well. And it seems as if he's making this, even the angel of death is uh, laughing at him. He's mocking him because of his cowardice. And this cowardice, how do we know that he is mocking his cowardice? The next line shows us, and in short, I was afraid. I did not have the courage to accept the truth. I did not have the courage to change myself. I did not have the courage to take a step forward to redeem myself. And would it have been worth it? Worth it means had the value after all. But I still question, if I, if my question would have been worthwhile, would it had been proved fruitful? Would I, after asking the question, I get my answer? After all, after the cups, the marmalade, the tea, among the porcelain. Porcelain is, the expensive china. Among some talk of you and me, among the petty talks that you and I make, would it have been worthwhile to have bitten off the matter with a smile, to have squeezed the universe into a ball? He says, would I, even if I had the courage, if I had, compelled myself to ask the question from the universe, would it have been worthwhile after my petty routine? How do you know he's referring to his petty routine? He's referring to the cups, the marmalade, the tea. That is, it, we have emerged, or the modern man has emerged to be a physical entity only. He only gratifies himself physically. And what becomes, what gratifies him, the food, and that food that is eaten in rich china, among uh, petty talks. He says that would it have been proper to ask a question, uh, and that question is going to come up in the next section, the last section of the poem, uh, and we are going to discuss it at that stage. So he says that would it have been proper to to sum up my question in a few words, and uh, in such a precise way that when it is unrolled, it would have had a number or millions of possible correct answers. So he says that because of my petty routine, I do not consider myself fit to ask a question, and maybe that question is that of that to the beloved, to marry him. So if you take if you think that the listener is his beloved. However, we find that he is still unable to find cure to his problem, and his dilemma continues in the next section as well.